One of these.
Oh, you wanna?
No, no, no. Is one of these needed for recording purposes?
No, this is where we're doing it for next class.
So can we stop?
Yeah, if you need one of these, let me know.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. If I could get your attention. Hi, we're gonna begin. I just wanted to offer a brief word of introduction. My name is David Myers, and I teach in the Department of History here at UCLA. And I'm pleased to be here really on behalf of the chair. I hold the Standing Ludwig Kahn Chair in Jewish History, which is really proud to join together with Standing Together and other friends in supporting this talk by Hamze. Really delighted that you were able to be with us. Without further ado, I think I'm going to hand this over to Adnan to introduce the evening. Adnan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adnan Jaber, born and raised in Jerusalem. I moved to Los Angeles only 1 year ago, and now I teach here at the Department of Art, Design, Media, course called Entrepreneurship, Design Entrepreneurship for Peace and Impact. I'm on the steering committee of Standing Together Los Angeles with many of the other friends that are attending here with us. So happy and proud to host Hamze, Awawde, coming. He's born and raised in Hebron, Khalil, Palestine, and I'm so happy that he's with us today. I'm not going to talk a lot about him. He's going to talk about himself. And I'm also happy that he brought another friend, Taher Abdallah, also from Jenin, to be here with us. So welcome. That's it. If you're interested in AI or entrepreneurship or building, that's when you come to. Thank you.
Do we need mic? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for showing up today. I know it has been a very depressing year, and I assumed that with time people will give up because it's really very discouraging when you know that there's very little you can do about the situation. People have protested, people have written articles, people have explored international law. So many things have been done, but still the war is decided by the people who have guns, and it will unfortunately stop only when they decide that it will cost them more. But we are, we can also still do many things. So I joined the peace people, let's say, when I was 19, not because I really was into peace, but studying the conflict, studying the history, studying all the political ideologies in Palestine and Israel. I reached the conclusion that yeah, there are so many people who are willing to sacrifice on both sides. People are really passionate about their cause, and I know Palestinian people will fight until the last drop of blood, but so does Israeli people, because both sides see it as an existential fight. So I was like, what can I do? Like, it's so, I want to sacrifice. I'm not less generous than my fellow Palestinians, but I don't want to be a loser also. So with the internet, I started also to learn about Oslo, learn about all the Palestinians and Jewish leaders, even 100 years ago, who had a different vision and who tried to show people that, if you want to go on the power game, you win once, you lose another time, but eventually the people there have connection to the land, and until both people have similar privileges and feel safe, they will always have reasons to fight. And with the years, each side became smarter at using violence and intimidation and intelligence and whatever, but didn't change anything. fact, once I met a very senior ex-Israeli politician, and want to mention his name, and he said, we used to know how many teeth in each activist mouth, like from the Palestinian side, but this did not stop or make us secure. So it was always limit, and with this situation, as normal person, all I could do is to educate people about the Palestinian cause with dignity, with confidence. It's for me was always a cause of human rights. It's a cause of justice, but we can't undo the past. The history moves only one side, and all we could still have impact on is the future. It's good that each side know where they come from and their narratives and so on, but it's unrealistic to make the other side believe your narrative. It's not their narrative, and I think was always minimum acceptable is to know that the other side has a narrative that they care about, and it's actually their identity now. But just okay, this is your narrative, this is my narrative, but what about the future? And the future, we have to make it based on principles of equality, of human rights, of self-determination, and I don't care which solution they will reach. This is the work of negotiators. This is not my job as activists to design what the solution will be. I think we as activists, we should call for the principles, and negotiators on the negotiation room should walk in and see what can be achieved with all the changes that happened, not only in the past year, but also the past 30 years. The people have changed, the world has changed, and I'm sure there is the will, there's always the way. So with our work, I started 13 years ago, we started with social media to bring Palestinians and Israelis to talk to each other with the same spirit that you are not here, no one here represents the government or should feel responsible with what their leaders have done or their side have done, but to come and get to know each other and think about the future. And by the way, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict hides also so many other internal issues on both sides that has been neglected over years that I think as dangerous as the conflict itself. So, on the Israeli side, there's the rise of right-wing religious politics, which is also an enemy of the progressive secular politics. In Palestine, we also, in the same time, had Hamas, who was really a fringe group that slowly became the face of the Palestinian national movement. We have the settlers in Israel who are leading Israel, and Hamas, whether Palestinians like it or not, they force themselves in the Palestinian cause, and both have friends around the world. So the right-wing settlers have so many generous friends in the US who really give them money, diplomatic support, protection, despite all the violations of laws. Only recently they start having some sanctions, but for 30 years, they were so comfortable. Their leaders would come here and be received as legitimate leaders when they are criminal based on even American laws times. And the Palestinian side, they have Hamas, they have Iran, who also help them with what they need. And the people who want peace and want different future, people who are not ideologically religious Zionists or Hamas, had no friends, because moderate people need stability to grow, need systems, you need the law, rule of law. We don't have guns. There they get their power by their ability to force facts on the ground. We can't go and force our facts on the ground. So it was always decline of the moderates because we had no friends. And the US, which is the most powerful country in the world, was never on the side of peace practically. It was always on the side of Israel, regardless of who's in the government. And this also showed the Israeli people that doesn't matter who's in the government, we will not lose in the world, even if we have Ben-Gvir as prime minister. The world will always, the friends of Israel will always stand with Israel. So it was also American position, and we knew it before October 7th, is on the side of the crazy people in Israel. They're not in the side of the moderates in Israel. And all the, let's say, progressive academia, artists, whatever, they naturally should be in the only group that should stand with the people on the ground who really, the people who really heal, the people who open organizations, the people who call out the government policies. We always thought that this is only people realistically who can stand with us. But October 7th happened, and we saw that Israelis and Palestinians got crazy, but also the whole world got crazy, which was strange because I understand why Israelis and Palestinians go crazy, because we worked with young people who became brothers and sisters, and when October 7th happened, they lost their mind. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just the situation is so crazy, so radical. The fear is so radical also. And when people are afraid, and legitimately afraid, they go back to their animalistic instincts, which is fight or flight. So there is a reason that people are crazy there, but outside, they shouldn't. I mean, people could have been crazy 1 month, but they should have started thinking, if the people there were interested, if they're really doing their activism here about the people there, they should become less angry, put their ego down, and start to see how to change power and laws and attention to get this war to end, because this war can last another 5 years or 10 years or 50 years. The occupation was supposed to be temporary, and now it's 58 years. So no one thought this war will be a year, and now it's a year, and can continue another year or 2 or 3, because there are beneficiaries of this war locally. So we have to have external pressure from outside, and it will only happen with politics. Like people, even activists, should try to create coalitions against some of their values, because they have to do it for the people there, not because of. There are so many people I meet and I talk to that I would never, for myself, accept to meet them. But I know their opinion, and the people that listen to them are important to create enough voices for ceasefire. The ceasefire has to happen, not because Hamas and the Israeli government and Hezbollah and all the bad guys in the region deserve to stay in power, but because they will stay in power as long as this war continues. Their ideology is about, this is their prophecy, what's happening now, like they are living their best lives. The Messianic Jews believed that they will be able to move the borders of Israel and annex land and all of that, and now it's happening. Like they see their prophecy. Hamas believed that Israel will decline and collapse by 2030, 2040, and they see also signs. And evangelical Christians also believe that there will be a war that will end all the wars, and they see signs. So these people will not stop the war because of rational calculation. For them, it's good enough now and can continue. So we need really everyone who doesn't subscribe to these prophecies and fantasies to come together, because it's in the interest of every Jew and Palestinian that this war stops. So I call on people, I know people really hurt and people feel the sense of injustice, but it's about the future. And if there's anyone who you can convert, who you can incorporate in some initiative, even if you have also to do compromises, please do it, because this is getting so bloodier every day. It's getting more dangerous every day, and enough with just rallies and flags and slogans, because this will not bring a cup of water to Gaza or save another person. Yeah, so this is my message, and I'll open it for questions and answers, and there's really no bad question, as long as it's your question and you care about and you need an answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to talk. You said earlier as a principle, when Israelis and Palestinians are coming together to talk, that no one should feel responsible for what their leader decides is done. And, you know, that seems like a really great principle. And at the same time, how does that play out when we're recognizing the power imbalance between Israelis and Palestinians? For example, when you have these amazing peace and dialogue groups and you come together to talk, but at the end of the day, the Israeli person goes back to their safe home and the Palestinian person goes back through the checkpoint. So how do you not feel responsible? And like, how do you not carry that responsibility and let it impede your dialogue, while at the same time acknowledging that there is a power imbalance, but that is also out of your control.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So talking about these programs, which I have done hundreds of it, if not thousands, they are good, but they're not the solution to the crisis we have. These programs should happen all the time, but we should not fool ourselves that this is what will change anything on the ground. The change has to come from outside, has to come from strengthening the forces of moderation inside both society, which means reliable partners globally who the US laws and the US financial support should be directed towards not war, but peace. And then you will have a more powerful, peaceful community inside Israel. And in Palestine also to protect minimum, to stop settlements building, to stop the daily violations. I'm talking about even October 7th kind of. So that moderate people in Palestine can have an argument to play. Right now, if you talk about peaceful solution, and people are skeptical, people are right to be skeptical, because under the current circumstances and the power game, there's no need to trust these projects. The reason I say people are not responsible, because they're not responsible. People live there under, for generations they had their own traumas, and they're indoctrinated. They raised in a structure where they go to school and every side just learn about their own side on their own righteousness, and then they go to the army. And this is just because we're born in this side or that side. Even American people are so confused between Trump and Kamala Harris, and they live in America. You think people there under the daily hardship they live and the massive manipulation, that they are able to choose leaders that are softer. For example, like in Israel, Bibi was called Mr. Security, and because he was called Mr. Security and he's tough, he sounds tough, people vote for him for emotional reasons, because they don't want to take a chance on someone who's look maybe softer, but actually smarter and actually more realistic about the future. But people under only normal circumstances can see what you see here right and wrong from this angle is not seen as the same. So the power imbalance is the issue, and whenever I met an Israeli, I did not acknowledge this power imbalance. I spoke as if I'm equal, because sometimes also we have to start from ourselves. But I knew I was not thinking I'm gonna make peace or I'm going to change anything. It was literally just keeping the doors open of conversation to also understand directly from the other side instead of less hearing about the other side. And at the end of the day, when I go to these meetings, I go in my individual capacity, and I go back with my individual capacity. None of us have the power to sign any agreement. So we have to understand this field differently. The real peace and change has to happen on the political level with a lot of pressure from outside. Like in Northern Ireland, they wouldn't have peace without the American massive support for peace there. In Northern Ireland, the American envoy used to go house by house, not only to top leaders, even medium leaders, to beg them to give him a week of not blowing up things, because America was really in the side of peace, and they put their money directed toward creating and intensifying peace. We never had this. We never even one day had the US. The US gives less than 1% of what they give for war. So we have enough war, but we don't have enough peace. So I'm not going to blame Israelis also because of all this reality. I blame ideologies. I blame structures, politics, leaders. But to blame people is first useless, and I also believe it's unfair. I don't blame also people in Gaza. I don't blame even the activists of Hamas, they were burning Gaza. They knew only Hamas. I blame Hamas. I blame the ideology of Hamas. But if I was burning Gaza, any one of you were burning Gaza, how can you guarantee you will not you will join this? People also should be judged within their context. So we should focus on ideologies and structures.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. You've been talking a lot about placing outside pressure on the powers that be. What is your opinion on the boycott and divestment movement in the US? Do you think it is an effective strategy to propel the peace process forward?
Good question. So in principle, any non-violent initiative is better than violent initiative. And I put violence as causing physical violence. Because violence is a term, some people say I was violated because of someone's look or something. So we have to define violence here as a physical violence. So in principle, non-violence is better than violence. Within the non-violence, I am, let's say, I am against umbrella boycott or like collective punishment, let's say. I do not buy from any company that does not align with my values, whether it's Israeli company or Palestinian company or a European company. So people should always put their money where their values are. I don't think closing doors is what we need. We need the opposite. We're cutting someone from a conversation because of who they are or what some identities they hold. It's counterproductive. Counterproductive because the change depends on having this conversation and bringing these people closer to a vision together. It's a good exercise to punish people and to feel some sense of justice that you know that we have seen some consequences for their actions. But Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government have used it in their side, saying that every Jew is boycotted and every Jew were living like during the Nazi regime, and it sells. So eventually, whether the approach was right or wrong, it was not effective. It was not effective, and we're so desperate to really try anything. And I really hope also this movement stop attacking people who don't agree with them, because it always has been an issue. I mean, I don't attack them, even though I disagree with them, but sometimes they would attack me for speaking to certain groups and certain people, as if I would be a threat to their work. They should be respectful to the diversity of views and diversity of approaches. So they can continue what they're doing, and they shouldn't intimidate others who want to do it different.
What do you think is the most effective way for people in the US, like me, I'm just a student here, to put external pressure on like the powers that be in Israel and on Hamas?
You should pressure your government. If your government changed a millimeter, it will have a lot of impact. And the situation wouldn't have lasted that long in this pattern without the general support of the United States of America. Like literally. This is a very stupid project that needs external support. The occupation wouldn't have. The occupation is against Israeli security, and all the Israeli security leaders have said it over and over that this is bad. It is not keeping Israelis secure. Every day, the Israeli army is operating for tens of years. So if it would have been for security, they would have achieved their mission long time ago. It would have been over. So America has to know that the support to Israel should be in alignment of the international law. Wherever Israel violates international law, the US should not. This is not the support of Israel to support Israel to be bullied. This is actually corrupting Israel and corrupting the people there who are, you know, Israel is so tiny compared to the US. So I think the Americans, their responsibility is to pressure the government to be a better actor for everyone there. And without, there are 7 million Jews and 7 million Palestinians. If one side is not comfortable, then no one is happy. Well, no one is happy naturally. If a child in Ramallah is not equal to a child in Tel Aviv, the child in Ramallah will grow up with resentment and ready to fight for what he thinks deserves. So enough wasting generations. Let's work into this direction. And I'm not saying overnight solution because it's also not realistic, but to see the people there should see that America is valuing these things because these are American values, by the way. It's not something weird for America to stand for. But America, I mean, the American president knows maybe each Israeli victim by name, but he doesn't know a Palestinian victim. He hasn't called out like a Palestinian victim or family of American Palestinians who lost somebody in Gaza. If you think this is him being nice to Israel, he's not being nice to Israel because he's also pushing unrealistic power balance that people on the ground will not accept it, whether they're weak or strong. Doesn't matter. They will not accept that America is biased. So this is the American rule, and I think this is what will be good eventually for every inhabitant in that land.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I agree with everything, that answer. I agree with everything you said. Today in The Guardian, I saw a really interesting argument by Mehdi Hassan, who argued that since Israel has effectively all but declared war on the United Nations by killing so many UN staff in both Gaza and Lebanon, blue helmets as well as UNRWA staff, and declared UNRWA to be a terrorist organization, and declared the Secretary General persona non grata. Mehdi Hassan argued that the UN should consider, or actually that the UN should expel Israel as a member state, because no member state has ever declared war on the United Nations this way before. And so I thought that was really interesting. What do you think of that?
I agree that Israel is, never had a good attitude toward the UN, although it was established by the. So it's all these radical groups, including Hamas, for example, who take what's good in some, what's good in democracy, but not the whole package. Take what's good from the UN, but not the whole package. It is a behavior of a bully, and it's only done because people also know that there will be no consequence. Now, to call the UN to remove Israel from the UN, it's a populist call because it's not going to happen. And it's a nice thing to say to answer people's anger, but honestly, it doesn't change anything. We don't live in a perfect world, and we have to get progress despite the conditions we have. So I would put another article that push for something that is possible under the current circumstances. Not because this is what we deserve, or in general. I'm not talking about expelling Israel from the Iran, but in general, calling for these fantasies. It's really part of our social media era where you get the most likes and so on.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I have a question about, you said we should convert anyone that we can, and we know that the change needs to come from outside, but obviously people and masses, especially if they're from there, Israeli or Palestinian, there is some effect from them as well.
Yeah.
But peace, that word could be like a bad word for some people. And I'm curious, what do you say when you're trying to talk to people and to show them maybe a pragmatic way, or maybe the fact that you're saying the solution is not for me to decide, I'm thinking about human rights and national rights and all that. And they're telling you something about anti-normalization, or that's kind of like a capitulation, that peace is a euphemism for more, for occupation, maybe like what happened, this process 30 years ago. So what kind of conversation?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, exactly. I don't use maybe the peace argument with them because they're very rational, realpolitik. It is, they want to be convinced this is on their side. This is good for them. And if they refer to Oslo agreement, Oslo Accord was imperfect, was the first attempt from both sides to reach an agreement. And if you judge it within the context of that time, I think it was very courageous step by both sides, and it was not always perfect during Oslo. There were bad days and bad periods, but overall it was probably the least bloody time in the history. So even a very bad agreement was until year 2000, despite the assassination of Rabin and despite Hamas suicide bombing, was as the economy grow and the people could go to Israel and the West Bank and Gaza, and people were slowly doing much better than they used to, until the peace collapsed, and then we had violence, and Israel occupied the West Bank, and they tried to change or to bring Palestinians to accept Israel terms by violence, and Hamas was very innovative with creating these rockets and all of that. For many years we tried this, and any honest person will say it didn't work. In fact, Israelis and Palestinians are never as vulnerable and destabilized as now. The past year, Israel used all type of bombs and all, maybe only a nuclear bomb they did not use, but they used everything in their disposal. I'm sure they did not, spare some intelligence or spare some, and still, Hamas still control Gaza and still challenges Israel. And Hezbollah, even after all these major attacks and stuff, they're still challenging Israel. So it's not working. And did not work in other contexts also. Every other conflict was solved by peace agreement, because there's no one there who feel they're temporary. Everyone feel that they have no other place to go to. And they have, I'm not saying also an agreement that doesn't answer their needs. It's not a surrender agreement, but there is international law and there is universal values. This is what is fair to ask people. You give them their rights and then you judge them if they don't behave. But as long as their rights violated, then we have violence. So you have to have with them a rational argument to show them that their interest is with a system that is more complex, because there's no violence solution, because violence has been tried. It's not that it's the first time they use violence and they tell you we need the time to try it out. They have used it. So they really have no rational argument for continuing this. But we have the problem with the ideological, like people who really, I mean, I had met some people during my visit in the US who see the West Bank as part of Israel, and they see dying for that as also a price they're willing to pay. These people, I don't know how we can talk to, and most likely the Israelis should talk to their Israelis like this, and the Palestinians have maybe better argument to have with Palestinians who think like this as somebody from outside, because any outsider attack legitimizes these people instead of weakening their argument. Yes.
Thank you so much for your words. What is so striking about the last year is the incredible success of both sides in triggering the deepest traumas of the other side. October 7th, all you heard was the bloodiest day, the most murderous day of all Jews since the Holocaust. For Palestinians, it's impossible not to think of the displacement of 2 million people without conjuring up images of the Nakba. And what trauma induces so often is blindness, complete and total blindness. And I mean, I really love and admire your commitment and resilience. When one looks at Gaza, one says, it will take a generation, at least, for some fundamental capacity to overcome the depth. And when one is in Israel, one encounters that just total blindness and incapacity to see the suffering of the other. What's your sense on the ground of how we can, of what can be done to address the depth of trauma and the blindness that comes with it, and the violence that then follows the blindness?
Really a very important question. I think to deal with the trauma, we have to stop the war, because you have to deal with post-trauma, not people being traumatized at the moment. So we have to stop the war, and there are professionals who really, I mean, we have seen that there are enough resources to create this damage. So a fraction of this damage can do a lot of healing, and there could be work of all the psychologists, the artists, the all type of professionals who should get resources to deal with these things. And it's gonna be a slow work, but also there should be a meaning to give to people. And if we're just gonna stop this war just as a ceasefire, like every time, without a real shift on how the world is dealing with this war, then people will not deal with this trauma. But if they know that now, okay, it was a very bad time of their life, the worst time in their life, but it's over because we're shifting toward a new direction and dealing with this conflict, maybe they can give meaning also to their trauma and seeing that the change is happening in their life with the different leaders and different way of governance, and attention from the world continued, not on like treating it as a football match. Some people with Israel, some people with Palestine, and some governments also behave like this. But with the real Marshall Plan, like what happened after in Germany after World War II, with a plan that really addresses this problem and many other problems. Also, we have economic issues. We have even in Israel, we have people who left. We have the middle class on both sides who have left, and people who leave will not come back easily. They will have invested in now starting a new life somewhere for their children, and we need to show the people and the world how much work needs to be done. So they stop just doing slogans and doing just public relation work, including the President of the United States of America. Most of what he says is public relations than anything else. We need whoever the president in the US to also lead such an initiative with the regional actors and with the EU to address the trauma and everything else. It's a work that has to be done. The same, like settlers have done the work to reach where they have reached, and Hamas have done the work. We need to do the work on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your vision. I think there's quite a few peacemakers or aspiring peacemakers in the room, or activists in their own right. And I think a lot of people are understandably very tired and seeing just another day, another million headlines that are heavy and fuel the sense of hopelessness. And so my question for you is, how do you sustain yourself? What are the people or the practices or the philosophies or things that sustain you as you continue to advocate for peace during a really hopeless time?
It was not always easy. Sometimes, it was very dark because I know people personally who were killed, both from the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. And I know that they really wanted to live. I know that like one of the hostages in Gaza was actually our participant. Like when we worked together, she was a participant with us. So I know that she came to peace and her family wanted peace. She went back, as somebody mentioned, she went back to Israel. She had to serve in the army because this is not her dream, but this is how things are structured for her. She has to go through the steps. She went to the army, October 7th happened, and she's in Gaza. And if you see the humanity of people, you suffer even more. The way I deal with it, therapy, being surrounded by people who really I knew for years, who really are consistent with their values, and we kind of support each other, but it's not easy. It's not easy, and maybe also to remember that it's not also about us, it's about the people who actually, we're suffering just watching, but the people are suffering because they are being, part of it. So it helps to postpone the despair and the tears to later, to do the work now. Yes.
What's your relationship been like up here?
I think God, in my God, is all the good things that happened despite all the madness, all the good people who stepped in, did not take permission from anyone to try to help with their capacity. Some people, they could help by just saying important stuff and nice stuff. Some people can donate money, some people, I don't know what, but people who are really doing their best, uninvited, these are God. These people are the God energy on earth.
What do you think it's gonna take for us day-to-day people and our collective power to get our government to withdraw its like unmitigated support and arming in the context of like our government being run by like oligarchs and people profiteering off of war? And like, what are the strategies? How do you see us winning and surviving?
So it's true that there are groups who want the war and very powerful in the US, but also people who are not in our side because of they have not been exposed to the entire truth. And I have met some even members of Congress and leaders of the Jewish community and some leaders and active people who really don't know basic facts. And they thinking they're doing good things for the Jewish people in Israel, but they're not. And to show them that actually they're also being complicit by their generosity, by their unprincipled support, that Israel is no longer this fragile state in the Middle East that needs support blindly. That actually Israel is a state and has maneuvering, and they can explode devices in Beirut, and it's a country that is there and mature enough to be held accountable, basically. So these people we have to reach out to, because these people are not on our side by mistake. And I know, like, they identify as Zionists, they identify as so many things. It's not my problem. Whatever they identify with is their issue. I come to say my message and the message of all activists in Israel and Palestine who are calling for change, not because they're betraying their people or whatever, because our future dependent on changing the structure. And every person you have to use a strategy. I don't know, sometimes you have to write a letter to your representative, sometimes you have to write an article, but it has to be done in a way that wins some people who are not on our side. And there are people, I tell you, we have to give up on this time, because either they're religiously happy what's happening. So what can we do apart from maybe someone who's as religious as them who can explain that this is not a good strategy? But yeah, I mean, to be desperately looking for ways to change is better than surrendering to despair and madness. You?
You mentioned the process that happened in Ireland, and I was curious. I don't know too much about how much was invested or how it, like what the US's motivation was really, and how can we take that historical context and work from it, and what are some of your thoughts in applying?
Yeah, so the US and the EU paid like hundreds of dollars per capita on peace programs. Peace programs means not dialogue only, but even building more schools and universities and infrastructure and jobs and experiences for people, so they were not at a level where they can be really exploited by radicals and so on. So they have done a lot of that for a long time, consistently, and the EU and the US had their offices that were working full time on this. Also, the American diplomats, they send the best diplomats, and they send them with one mission, is to get an agreement at any cost. Why America did it? Because they wanted peace in Europe. It is a national also interest for the US. There are a lot of Irish people here also put pressure, but America, it's not strategically was not strategically good for America that Ireland and the UK having this conflict, because they are all part of the West and part of the American side against China and Russia and the Russians. And in our side, it's a different game. America thinks strong Israel is its interest in the region. and that's it. But there's no contradiction between strong Israel and Israel that respects international law and in the occupation. And here where America is lazy, because whoever in the White House doesn't want to pay the internal price. You know, if Biden really went ahead and pushed for ceasefire at some point in the past year, he would have paid a heavy price internally here. So this is the work also of Americans to make this price less by changing the people and reaching out to and converting more people. I don't know, certain communities that, I mean, I have met enough Americans who have changed over the years. So I think it's possible to change people. So to change the environment in the US, so it becomes easier for whoever in office, because no politician want to be a hero and sacrifice themselves for a good cause. They will do whatever is safe politically.
You were mentioning about the Marshall Plan, and I was thinking about like South Africa and the Peace and Reconciliation Commission. In like 10 or 20 years, what do you think's the best case scenario in your eyes for the region?
Well, yes, so the work of peace and reconciliation happens usually after the agreement is signed, because the signature of the agreement is just creating a social contract or a contract, but it should be a lot of work to heal and build a new identities for people, because if the conflict now is their identity. So to change that, I think we should be creative. I don't know. I don't think the conflict is still the same. I think the Israeli society is deeply divided. The Palestinian society is really divided between people who think about the future and pragmatic and so on. They love their nation and country, but I mean, Rabin was not a dove. Rabin saw realistically that there's no other option. And he was not populist, and he did not care about his likes on Instagram. So he went and shook the hand of Arafat, and the same Arafat also fought bravely and with a lot of courage, but he reached the conclusion that we have to reach an agreement. So whatever, I mean, if I was in the negotiation room, I would take this in consideration too. Two-state solution was built based on Palestinians want to stay alone and the Israelis want to stay alone. Maybe it's still valid, maybe not, I don't know. But I don't think we are there to ask this question. We are still in active war, and we have to stop the war and also show people that there's no violent solution from now on. And that they have to, ideally, we should have also some process of stabilization, because we can't be dependent on reaching an agreement to stop violence, for example. Like every time you speak about settlements or violence or army, the American administration will tell you, we support two-state solution. Yeah, good, cool, support two-state solution. But meanwhile, we have to stop these things. So we also have locals who support two-state solution. Because as long as there's violations, daily violations, people will not support two-state solution. So yeah, so we have to really focus on the first steps.
From my understanding, you're from the Hebron area, and I'm sure you've seen settler violence firsthand. But I'm just curious to know, regarding settler violence specifically, like what has your, I'm sure you've seen it get worse throughout the years, and I don't know for sure, so I won't speak for you, but so I guess my question is this something that the international community can agree on, that settler violence specifically needs to be like squashed?
Yeah.
And I don't know how far you want to take it, remove the settlements, or I guess if you could elaborate a little bit about settlement specifically.
Yeah, the settlement movement is now the movement that controls the state of Israel completely. Ben Gvir and Smotrich, any cabinet decision depends on their willing. One day, Ben Gvir was the problem of people in Hebron, and they didn't care. And now it's their problem. Now the hostage families, Ben Gvir sent his police and they beat up hostage families in Tel Aviv, and they dragged them to the station like criminals. So it is not. And by the way, Ben Gvir handed them at least 100,000 new guns. So they're building a parallel army for the settlers because they are afraid that the Israelis might find themselves in a position where they have, for strategic reasons, to remove the settlements or some of the settlements. So they're preparing for that day by arming up, and they fought in this war in organized way, and they see themselves as a parallel army and government. They take whatever goods from Israel, they have no problem. They take the money, social security, investment, protection, army, everything, but it's not, they're not loyal to the state. And this is a crime against the Israeli people too, that the US and the international community held for a long time tolerating. Until now, Israelis are literally scared from. I know so many friends in Israel who get messages for going for the hostage protest, and before October 7th, they had the plan to change the nature of the state of Israel to serve the settlers. So it will be even worse after this war ends, because now they're even more powerful. So yes, that's another reason for the international community to push for international law there, and to tame all these bad actors with all possible means. There are billions of money moving from this country to settlers, not from the military aid to Israel, but also from certain communities here who support the settlers passionately, and they're supporting something illegal. There are so many American companies operating in the settlements, and this is illegal. So we just need to, it's so defendable, the idea of sanctioning whoever is violating the situation and violating the chances for the future. And the Israeli people also, their future depends on this. So in this war, again, we're seeing the moderates leaving, and they started to leave. The Israelis before October 7th because of how backward the settler movement has become in Israel. So yeah, it's a very dangerous thing that is being neglected. And I'm not saying bomb them, whatever, no, but it should be taken seriously. It's not enough that some settlers cannot come to the US. I mean, these people have ideology and they don't care but to come to the US or not. Sanctioning their bank accounts help, but it should be a bigger process. And I know many Israelis who are coming to lobby for this, but still, this government is scared to make fundamental change.
We talked about the responsibilities on the US, on Israel. I'm curious from your perspective, what are the responsibilities of the Palestinians?
So the Palestinians, again, I go to the leaders, because people are really, I don't want to put them responsibility. We have Hamas that has controlled Gaza for 17 years and enabled the right wingers in Israel to be as harsh as possible on Gaza. Meanwhile, they were getting money for Hamas through Bibi, and whoever doesn't know can Google it and search about it. But the Israeli government for years have been making sure Hamas is okay in Gaza. People in Gaza besieged. Hamas leaders actually traveled freely through Rafah, but the people could not travel. So the siege was really on the people of Gaza, but Hamas has betrayed the Palestinian people. Hamas has cared about their project and their resistance as a primary thing. And if they cared about the people, I don't think they ever cared, but it was secondary or thirdly. And the Palestinian Authority also has been under a massive attack from the Israeli government and was pushed to be bankrupt and sanctioned. By the way, the American government is no longer able to give money to the Palestinian Authority because of all the laws the Israeli lobby here pushed to vote in Congress. But that's not excuse for the PA not to reform, not to hire qualified people in their jobs, not to be close to the people. The Palestinian leaders in Ramallah, and you know it, in the rest of the Palestinian territories, they never see them. They don't know what their opinion about this war. They have not spoken even maybe once, maybe never about this war. And it's because we don't have agents in our leaders. In the Palestinian Authority, we need leaders that Israel and the international community are okay with, not Palestinian leaders that we deserve. And in Gaza, it's because Iran is paying Hamas. So this is the price we pay because we don't have a state, we don't have ability to protect our way of choosing leaders. And And I hope the Palestinian people, at least, in their hearts, hold them accountable.
What about the simple Palestinian people, residents in Hebron, in Nablus, like me and you?
Yeah.
What should be our responsibility during this time?
I think they're doing fine. I don't think they really like what power they have. I mean, as long as they can secure food for their family and sending their kids to school and staying in the land, and I think this is the maximum. We shouldn't put a lot of weight on them because they're powerless. They're being taken on these adventures without even taking the permission. So no, I don't like to put people the same like with Israeli people. Israeli people, they are born told that everyone hates them, want to kill them, and they have to fight, and they don't even promise their children that they will not serve in the army anymore. So it's because of the context, and we have to focus on changing the status quo, not the people. The people are okay. I mean, the people they come here and they behave. They do behave there, because the situation there is wrong, not the people. Yeah.
A weird question, but if you were just talking about the settler movement, I think there might be any moderate settlers that it's possible to talk to and try to change. Because, I mean, of course, the settlement shouldn't have been there to begin with, but at this point, is that a route that makes any sense? Are there any groups like that?
Yeah, so the settlers, they're economic settlers, and they're ideological settlers, but both knows that they're living the best life with the lowest cost, and when they will be asked to leave, they will get a lot of money. So they're living heavily subsidized by the taxpayers in Israel and maybe the US too, and they know when they will be asked to leave, they will get, because in Gaza, like when they moved the settlers from Gaza, they all got good money. So it's really a very toxic arrangement. So to talk to, they shouldn't be there. The moderate ones shouldn't be there, in my opinion, because they have options. I mean, if they really have no options and not being in the settlement means they will be killed and whatever, that in Israel there's no place for them at all, it's so crowded, then maybe we can think about it. But the ones who are there by choice and they're moderate, it's because they want money. And they know that the money means the blood also. It's the money that,
I actually have one more. Okay.
please.
I was just thinking, because of what we were talking about, like what is our role, and I feel like since everything began way before, so like, specifically since this specific the last year, I feel I've been like kind of torn with a lot of the Israeli society, including my immediate family. Not like we don't talk, but we don't talk about the opinions and the hurt. And I find myself mostly talking to people who kind of agree with, and that's easier for me. But is that like not my role? Is my role to talk to my family, my people, and not avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, no, really, ideally that you should be able to find a way to talk, and I don't know, maybe do it gradually, maybe, because you should understand the gap between both of you and acknowledge the reality too. I mean, you are comfortable and you are privileged to be here, but also privileged to the experience you had that made you think what you think. So have a conversation with them, or like not also be so pushy, like when it's mentioned, whatever, just don't lose hope in people and don't be also looking for radical change in their life. And remind them it's not working also. It's that if this was the way, then it's a very bad way. It's not working.
Two last questions. Let's take, and then we get work.
Or we can ask the questions and then answer them together.
Okay, two
Let's ask
questions.
them. We have three. So let's start from here and then from the back.
Yeah, so it's almost like piggyback from that question out there. It's been quite a year, to say the very least. one of the things that I most admire about you, and I bumped into you thanks to like again and Fellows, you know, I've been following them since this whole thing unraveled. And it's your ability to hold nuance, your ability to see and understand that there's a few things that can be true at the same time. It feels almost like at this time, doing that is a rare commodity. It feels difficult, especially when you're like situated between friends and family who can't seem to do that because of trauma and all these things. So I guess what I'm asking for is for words of encouragement to be able to continue with it because it's so tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, it's tough. And it's getting worse. But we have no other choice. I understand that it's getting worse because the more they fail, the more aggressive they will get. Not that all of a sudden they're finding targets in Beirut and they want to bomb them. If they really had targets, they would have bombed them already. But now they're like trying to prove the point that we still can fight and we have options, and also Hamas still, you know, make sure every couple of weeks they do 2 rockets or 3 to show that they're still there. But we're not trying to change Hamas or the Israeli government. We're trying to change the people around them who still give them some legitimacy and some credit that you shouldn't anymore. Anyone who loves Palestinians should understand that people in Gaza don't want Hamas, for example. And we should keep making the point to know that it is important that everyone in the world stand with people from Gaza because they need the most help. But that doesn't translate to supporting Hamas or justifying Hamas. Because whatever Hamas did, even if armed resistance was legitimate, it was stupid because of the consequence. And from the Israeli government side, people have to also remind themselves that before October 7th, the Israeli people were against this government because they accused them to be liars, to be undemocratic, to be from Middle Ages, and they continue to be so. So we have to keep fighting on their friends to change and to get enough enough people around the ceasefire. And we have to do it no matter how aggressive they get, because they depend on us giving up and depend on us. And I think it's like a tunnel. You never know when the light will, but you have to keep it driving. You have to keep going until you finish the tunnel. And otherwise, like if we don't do anything, it's they will be even harsher, I believe, and they will be even more dominant in the conversation. And we are taking part in shaping the conversation. We're taking part in, because this will be history. It will be a record for the future. Yes, please.
First, I want to apologize for being late.
Thanks for
I
coming.
didn't hear all that you said, but what I understand is that I have a sense of the theory of change is change that's going to emanate from the people. That's going to transform the reality. But we need leaders. So I just want to know from you, do you see that there are young leaders who can emerge from what you understand in terms of your own movement activity? Do you have anybody, is there anybody in mind with on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side who could step forward? That's number one. And number two, what do you think of the attempt of a land for all? Should we be talking about that? Because you said that we should concentrate now on the immediate, but you also have a vision. And I think people need a vision because the hope will be a function of a dream that people are striving or aspiring to fulfill.
So in terms of leaders, there are really many leaders in both sides are now working with the people. The real ones who are really close to people. After October 7th, the ones in Israel who really were the first to respond to help people were my friends. They were not the settlers. These people are a part of creating the problem, not the solution. And the people in Gaza were doing activities with the kids and distributing foods, and they're my friends too. These are people who are always, they care about the people more than they care about their ideology and whatever. And these people, if their conditions are right, they really will be in position of power. And they will really serve in whatever capacity they are good at. Some people will be in the Knesset or the Palestinian parliament, or some people will make political movements. But right now it's a suicide. Right now it's the guns time. So they are quiet and they're trying to stay safe themselves, even from their own people, you know. So we have to create the situation for leaders, but we have so many smart people there. Like, look at the Arab countries. Most of the people, most of the advisors of all the monarchs in the Gulf states are Palestinians, by the way. Israeli people are all over the world also doing amazing stuff, because if they could have done it and they could have got the opportunity back home, they would have done it also home. So we have to change the situation, and Land for All is one of the creative solutions. I really like that they went outside the box and explored a third way instead of one state or two states. So I personally like it. I don't know if it will work or not, but I like it. And I think it's worth to amplify it and support it and show it as another option on the table. If people say two states is problematic or one state is unrealistic, then why not? We can have this, or we can have even another solution. Okay. Do you have time for
Burning question? No, I just wanted to follow up on what Land for All is, how it differs from. Let's mix them three together.
Yeah, let's take the questions and we.
So what's your follow-up question? What Land for All is? What is Land for All? What's your question?
So I'm also Palestinian, but I'm also Israeli citizen. So I'm part of 20% are Palestinian Israelis, or many of the 100 nations call us. And it's been especially interesting being in the US this year while everything was happening and getting this like outsider look at it for the first time. I was born and raised there. And I'm curious if you think, so like to kind of touch on like, what is the average American responsibility in all of this and in general. And I feel like there's been a distinct, very specific change in politics here and in Israel and in the region in general ever since 2016 and the Trump election that happened, and the kind of rise of populism in a very like strong way, which I feel like influenced a lot of how TV operated from that point onward. And I just, to sum it up shortly, I just wanted to, curious what you think about that, if you've noticed any difference in that, to kind of like, you know, an average American, there's so much you can do beyond just election year when it's like white versus black, to find a very binary system, you know, that you have 4 years in which like, what do you do about your own political system that clearly has a lot of influence on other politics and regions around the world?
Thank you.
First, I'm still sitting with what you said about like wasting generation. The tragedy of that, like reality is really big on my shoulders. You said it. And in terms of, you know, changing public opinion, I feel that I've experienced so many range of opinions on what is good for Israel, what is good for Israelis versus what's good for Jews, or what's good for Palestine versus what's good for Palestinians. And I see huge differences in what people think that is here in America versus on the ground in Gaza, in Palestine, in Israel. And that becomes a block when I'm speaking to my people here. I'm speaking to other Jews in the diaspora. I'm speaking to Israeli family that live in Los Angeles, and they're reacting to what's good for Israel based on what people are saying what is good for Palestine. And those aren't necessarily Palestinians, but those are people that are speaking very loudly here. And I see how the US government is also reacting to statements like that. And as an individual in a room of individuals, I want to know how to break that cycle, how to put the voice back into the people who need the solution now, who need it yesterday, who need it years ago, and not the social media activism that we see here.
So we start with land for all. So it's a mix of one state and two states. It's realizing that Palestinians and Jews there have connection to the whole land. So there will be no change of transfer of population. So settlers will not be removed, but they will be part of the state of Palestine. And Israel also already by national state because there are 20% Palestinians there. Some identify as Palestinian citizens of Israel, some identify as Arab Israelis. And that there will be two states, but will on certain level, on governance, on economy, or like legal issues and religion and stuff. And there will be one like state that will be in charge of defense.
Open borders.
Open borders, and yeah, there will be open borders that Jerusalem will be shared, and it's a combination of both. So people will enjoy having access to the whole land, while they have also their self-determination, that they're not being melted in one state where everyone is afraid from demographic change and so on. So this is on Trump. So what Trump has changed the conflict completely, because up until Trump, the center and the left in Israel had the argument that without peace with Palestinians, we will not be integrated in the region. And then Bibi and Trump said, no, you don't have to have peace with Palestinians. We can remove the Palestinian issue because they decided so, and we can have peace with the Arab countries. They had peace with countries they already have strong relations with since the 70s, actually, like the Emirates. They just made it public, and they never were in war anyway. And they said that now the Palestinian issue is no longer valid. And then the Israelis saw that, yeah, true, you don't need to make peace with Palestinians, actually. It can work without that. So why we are fighting between each other when actually, yes, turned out to be wrong, this theory that says without Palestinians, you will have legitimacy in the Middle East. Until October 7th. And yeah, and the Israelis across, I mean, it was really a minority among the left who still kept saying, no, we need peace with Palestinians first. Most of Israelis that I was dealing with also about this idea that no, like the Arab people have abandoned the Palestinians, and now we have relations. And maybe in years, the Israeli people, because they would go to Dubai, they would change. And so the whole paradigm changed thanks to Trump-Bibi Abrahamic Accord, which removed the Palestinians from the equation. And on the issue of activism, yeah, activism that is a response to others is not activism. This is just people shouting at each other. What we need, when I speak about Palestinians, I speak about what I need as Palestinians. I don't care who's the audience. Whether the audience, like if I have to come and respond to people, they become about responding to them, not about. I will even forget what I stand for, what I need. So it doesn't matter. It's reactionary. It's just noise and chaos for nothing. You focus on, as a Jewish Israeli person, you focus on what you think is good for the future generations of Jewish Israelis in that region. And it doesn't matter what Palestinians say, it doesn't matter what Jews say. This is what you are also not representing anyone, you're just representing your own view, and you should focus. Otherwise, you will get lost in answering because every day also these arguments change, and you have just to argue and debate. It's not helpful.
Great, that was amazing. I really admire, I'm gonna talk about, I really admire this person, not only for speaking for human rights, but also for speaking about peace and unity during the hardest times, coming from the hardest place. That really needs a lot of guts to do, honestly. Double oppression is on him, not one. So really thank you for making, and he's coming on his personal capacity and income. He's not funded by any political group. He's an independent person. By the way, terrorist. So I really admire those people, and because he also came on his personal capacity, there's this donation for his GoFundMe campaign. Please feel free to scan the QR code. I want to say a word about standing together. Now we're establishing a student club on campus with great Mikey. And there too. Who's also? Elliot. Right. Um, Anything else you want to mention about standing together? Anyone wants to say a word about standing together?
Well, I just want to say that if any of, I see that we have a lot of students here. If any of you are interested, we're just starting out this quarter, and please come talk to either me or Elia after. And we're going to be connected with the local chapter here and trying to do more things like this, and also being active, both on the street and in the university, and with hopefully with our peers and faculty as well. So please come talk to us. We're standing together. Do you want to talk?
What is standing together? It's a group of Palestinians and Israelis existing in Israel, Palestine, that choose to come and stand together during all times. They were listening for a long time to call for peace, for end occupation, now calling for ceasefire and a release of hostages and humanitarian aid. Grassroots organization. And in my opinion, our responsibility here is to support those organizations there, because in my opinion, the real change will happen bottom top, and of course with the help of top bottom, but it's missing a lot of bottom top right there, right now. The funding that goes for peace organizations doesn't even count. It's not that much. $250 million in 5-year plan, the US donates to peace building cross border between Palestinians and Israelis, 250 million, compared to billions of military aid, which it doesn't make the situation better, in my opinion. So we need to support these organizations. So I know an organization called the Alliance for Middle East Peace. Go to their website, the Alliance for Middle East Peace. There you will see a list of 180 peace organizations. There's arts for peace, dance for peace, music for peace, tech to peace. Find the one that you like, support them, talk to them, give them mentorship, connect them with another person. I think that can be the most productive thing to do right now as simple individuals. So thank you so much all. Feel free to network with me, with Hamze, with Mikey, anyone with standing together. Standing together, raise your hands. See? We have many. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alliance for Middle East Peace. You didn't mention that. Yeah.